some Nigerians, of course, a lot of young Nigerians, read your letter in many ways. Some believe that you were trying to shirk responsibility. Was that what you were trying to do?
Well, considering that I'm not the president of the country, it's impossible for me to shirk responsibility for a country that is not my responsibility.
Well, you are aware of how divisive the elections were,
yes,
even amongst young people.
Absolutely. So
and the number of people who would say, well, we told you so. How do you react to people
I react to it by dismissing those people. They are not serious-minded people.
They're not serious-minded?
No, they're not.
I'll tell you one serious-minded person
Please.
I interviewed recently,
Please.
Professor Jideonwo.
Yes.
I'm sure you'll consider him serious-minded.
Because I respect him a lot.
I imagine that you would.
Yes.
I remember one of my interviews with him in 2016. He said that President Buhari was packaged by a group of young people who did not know.
That's not true. So that's the problem.
Who were not born.
That's a lazy.
As at the time President Buhari, was
Obasanjo not born? I find that paternalistic. And with respect to Professor Dinkalu, who I respect deeply, I find that patronizing. President Obasanjo, who supported President Buhari, was born in 1984. Bola Tinubu was born in 1984. Rochas Okorocha was born in 1984. That is not an argument that passes the test of rigor.
For a number of people, there'll be different motivations.
Exactly. So I'm saying, but the thing that they would be young is because they were young. Doesn't make it's not valid. There is no, if you put it to the test, that's not something that stands the test of time. There were young people, there were old people that supported President Buhari. There were young people, there were old people that supported President Jonathan. You see, this idea of I told you so is lazy. It's lazy and it's not productive. This is the reason why. There's nobody that's an adult who voted for President Buhari that expected that Nigeria was going to become an El Dorado under him. And I was just talking to a group of young people who were asking me, and I said, the problem is that we don't read the print, not even the fine print. Many of us who supported President Buhari in 2015 made it clear the reasons why. We said clearly, and I said clearly in an article in the New African on the week of the elections, and in an article on CNN the day after the elections, that nobody knows how Buhari would perform in office. The only person who knows that is Buhari. However, the right of a disappointed citizenry to punish a failing government is inalienable, and that irrespective of how he performs, it would not invalidate the decision to punish what we considered a failed government. I remember that one of my friends wrote that Buhari was a bridge to 2019. So we were deeply perceptive. We knew the risk we were taking. We counted the costs, and we made an informed decision. The fact that Buhari hasn't performed was part of the assumption that we might vote in a man who might not materially change the circumstances of Nigeria in 4 years, but that in spite of him, if we are able to break the monopoly of a lecherous ruling party, then we would level the playing field for candidates that come in 2019.
But would you say that you have been fair to the government? I mean, the federal government was very meticulous and very measured in its response to...
They had no choice.
To President Obasanjo. No, they had a choice.
They had no choice.
Look at the response that was given to President Obasanjo in the wake of, his letter to President Jonathan. They definitely had a choice. But what they've done right now is they have been, very meticulous in listing their achievements. It didn't quite answer any questions for you.
It didn't. It didn't. Because the criticism of the president includes all things considered. I am proud of, like with Jonathan, and I did say this a lot, under President Jonathan, we made giant strides in agriculture, in revamping that entire sector. We made important progress in expanding the transportation networks through the train systems. And more than anything else, he helped us build a strong, independent National Electoral Commission. There is no government that doesn't have things that it can speak to. This government has done well with ease of doing business. This government had an economic team that brought it out of the recession that it supervised us into. So there will always be a government. If you look carefully enough, you will find something to praise anybody for. It is not because there are no good things. This is the collectivity of a legacy that requires response. And that legacy includes the inaction over the headsmen and the ambiguity in that inaction. It includes the the lack of moral authority in tackling anti-corruption, as we've seen with the SGF, the pension scandal, and the lack of progress on any of these big issues that we've talked about. They wrote in the letter that you have to blame the judiciary. Well, did they blame the judiciary when Goodluck Jonathan gave the same excuse? It also includes the lack of moral authority that the president now has because of the way that he mishandled his health care issue. We still don't know what ailed him. He's still not giving us a response. He promised that he was going to be a more open and transparent leader than the one that we have. He said that whenever we have a problem, he's going to take responsibility, he's going to fix it. He hasn't taken responsibility over the fuel crisis that we continue to have. He hasn't fixed it. So it's not enough to point to one or two things. Even Sani Abacha could point to one or two things. It's enough to say to us that we have fundamentally transformed the way that politics and governance is done, and we have kept up to 50% at least of the promises we've made. They can't make that case.
I'm sure that you've already started your analysis towards 2019. You wrote this book, yes, How to Win Elections in Africa, yes, and this is, you say, what activists, donors, social engineers and citizens can learn from statecrafts, incorporated successful runs in Nigeria and Ghana. I'm just wondering, how do letters like this, how do they affect elections?
How do which letters? Letters or...
Yeah, the letters written by
president. What they do, they create an atmosphere that allows the social permission for people to find alternatives. What you do is, it's legitimacy of governments come from the people, and not just from the polling booth, from the conference of conversation. And what happens is that when you begin to withdraw that legitimacy, drip by drip, by drip, by drip, then any government in an open democracy has a problem.
As expected, of course, the People's Democratic Party they agree with almost everything. I mean, it would be surprising if they didn't agree.
They didn't agree.
Yes, but they do take objection to the main title of his letter, which is the coalition, a call for a coalition of Nigerians. This week, a coalition movement has been launched here in Abuja.
Yes.
What are your thoughts in that regard? Is that really the way? Should we really be looking to a third force?
I'm not really concerned about the third force, more than I'm concerned about. I think that, like I've said often, I feel that President Buhari's job is done. He has helped us supervise the transition to a competitive democracy. The field is now open for more people to come in. I would rather that he did a Mandela and stepped aside. Now, when that happens, if that happens, then I would like to see a quality of candidacy that we've not seen in our recent democracy. Now, I didn't expect that quality of candidacy in 2015, and we didn't have it. I didn't expect that quality of candidacy in 2011. But now, it is legitimate, considering how far we've come, to expect it. That is more important to me than a third force. That being said, because we understand that the way our democracy runs, we might end up with this binary in 2019. Therefore, it's important for us to begin to make it clear that if they choose the kind of candidates that Nigerians are not happy about, the Nigerians will have to look for a third option. So a third option is not what will be desirable. It will be desirable if these two parties listen to the voice of people and said, it is time for candidates who understand how to construct a modern society. But they need to be put on notice that if they don't do that, then we will have to find an alternative.
Now, we have to examine this democracy a bit further. We will take a moment now. When we return, we'll talk about democracy and whether or not it's really the way to go for Africa. Please stay with us.